What's up, troopers? We're here to talk to you about another secondary objective. This one is Recon Mission, and this one is interesting because it's the lowest scoring secondary. Sort of. Technically, you could score the same on this and destroy enemy base, but this one it is maximum 1 point or 1 VP per round per player. Uh, that said, it's one of the relatively easier ones to score because you just need to end an activation within range two of 2 units. In the realm of the current state of the game with the nature of primary objectives, there is usually some sort of a brawl or a brouhaha happening in any game.
Hey, you want to have a fight?
That's right. Or a hoedown, a hootenanny, so on and so forth. And you basically just want to make sure that the unit that you give your scanner to is a unit that wants to be a part of that brawl, which means that Jedi are a really good choice, it turns out. What are the other things you think about, if anything, when it comes to who you give the scanner to, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, don't give this to a Padme or a Leia or a Veers. Like that
Probably
would
not an
be.
ARF trooper.
That's not the worst unit you could
Yeah.
pick, but
Okay. Okay.
definitely, probably not on the highest priority of the list. They at least have like scout and can double move and get
Yeah.
kind of close if you want them to. But yeah, generally, I would. I mean, hey, you can always attach a Jedi Guardian to that ARF unit. Um,
Wow. Finally, we have the reason to do that.
um, but I would say put it on your arcs.
Yeah.
Not a bad one for sleeper cell. Um, I think one of the things that I would be cautious about, particularly when you're putting it on one of those like higher lethality units,
Mm-hmm.
is that sometimes you have to make a decision between killing your opponent's unit or having less than two things at range two of you,
Yeah.
particularly with like arcs and sleeper cell and Jedi and stuff that can easily one shot stuff. Don't kill the things that are gonna score you recon mission.
Yeah. On more than one occasion, I've had my recon token on Dooku, and I have maybe been like right next. I'm engaged with two rebel troopers, and then right next to me is an already activated rebel trooper, and I see like the force choke, and I'm like, oh, I could just kill that unit. But then you got to do that double take and go, wait, if I do kill that unit, then all of a sudden I actually can't score a recon mission. And so you got to sort of preserve things. And it does actually even create situations where, depending on the game state, you may just be motivated to just sort of like mess around and force push with those two, like one mini rebel trooper units until the game's over. Because otherwise, you're not actually achieving the objective here. So do keep that in mind. I do think that there is a distinction to draw between this and something like marked targets, where or surface scan, where the vulnerability of a unit like really, 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 really mattered for those. For this one, like as long as your buddies are nearby, there actually like isn't a ton of like negative consequences if your recon unit dies, because especially if you have a bunch of chargy units, any unit that can get in there and pick it up and even do their shot or do their charge, as long as they're also within range two of two enemy units, then they can score. And so you can kind of keep handing it off and dying and handing it off and dying. You can still score this one. So it's not nearly as punishing as some of the other secondaries are, when it comes to like making the unit choice. And what that also means is that it's pretty common for games to finish where both you and your opponent have scored the exact same number of VPs from the secondary, which means that it can actually be a secondary that's sort of neutral, and that allows you to flex on the primary a little bit more. If you think that you have an advantage over your opponent in the primary versus like some other secondaries, like Bring Them to Heal, where the number of points and the differential of points can be really massive. Recon Mission just ain't going to do that.
Yeah, I would also like to say like there's some fun kind of like combo-y stuff you can do with this. So what comes to mind is like a spotter uplinking like a speeder bike unit and giving recon mission to the speeder bike unit. All of a sudden you just like turn two, you like dive bomb it into their lines. All of a sudden you've got sharpshooter one against everything that is it's around, and everything's got an observation token on it, right? It's like you're really marker lighting everything up. And then you don't have to worry about that token until next turn when you have to pick it up because your speeder bike died.
Which will happen, by the way, if you
which is
do that.
which is 100% going to happen.
Yeah.
But you got, somewhere between 4 and 8 re-rolls out of it, plus
Yeah,
maybe
that's fair.
sharpshooter. Like,
It may be worth it sometimes to dive it in there.
yeah, like you can definitely, come up with a game plan centered around recon in that respect. Um, be very careful about your opponent playing around your recon units, though, and making it so that there actually isn't eligible units to score.
Yes.
I one of the big things about this is do not, do not deploy your recon unit in the top half of turn one. It will give your opponent the information they need
It's like, I'm going to
to
go over here then.
to just move their units
Yeah.
away from your recon unit, and
Right.
you might not be able to score it on turn two because it's just not actually physically possible to get to a location where that is going to happen.
Absolutely.
So be wary of that. It also requires line of sight, which can be a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, yeah, just keep in mind that you're not going to score it because you're hiding behind a wall near 2 units. You do have to be looking at them, which makes sense because it's called recon. So,
You get your
um,
X-ray binoculars next time.
yeah. Um, so yeah, Recon Mission. It's maybe one of the tamer secondaries. It's low scoring, but there are some game plans that you can roll with. I do feel like. Do you feel like there's any particular list that especially likes taking this? I more think of lists that don't like taking this, which is a list that doesn't have like a ton of like brawly units. A list that likes to play keep away a little bit. Like I don't think that EXD would like this very much in the grand scheme of things.
I
It
don't
might be
hate it on
okay.
EXD. Like the speed 3 moves like allow you to pick the token up
Yeah, that's
easier
fair.
if
That's fair.
if you drop it. I think to me I would stay away from recon mission with lower activation lists
Ah, yeah, that's true.
where you don't have as much backup to pick up the token. I think as many people will probably find there's a common thread in a lot of these objectives is that higher activation lists equal better. Uh, but I do think that if you want to play recon mission, you got to make sure that you have enough guys around you to pick up the token if you die, because you
Yeah.
probably will die at some point. And if you've only got somewhere between 6 and 10 activations, like that can be tough sometimes. So, maybe look at some of the other options if you're in that category. But I do think that on the whole, Recon Mission is maybe the most list like agnostic
Right.
secondary you have access to.
Yeah.
So if
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 you're
you
really
don't,
scratching your brain thinking of like a third card to put in there, then Recon Mission will honestly probably be fine.
yeah, it's pretty easy to score. Generally, it's the least likely to bite you if you're like unable to do the thing on the card in Recon Mission, you lose 1 point, which, yeah, that's often the game. But unlike some of the other secondaries, where if you don't do the thing, you often will lose more than 1 point.
Exactly.
Somewhere between two and
Yeah.
four. So,
Not so bad in the grand scheme.
yeah.
All right. Well, that's Recon Mission. And if you like what we're doing here, please consider checking out the Patreon. And thank you to Jacob Camp for producing. We'll see you in the next TFT Mini.